The alien fleet drifted silently through the dark void of space, their sleek black ships cutting through the stars like specters. Jorax, the fleet commander of the Zellara, stood at the helm of his flagship, staring at the blue-green planet rotating below them. Earth, a world the Zellara had marked for conquest for decades, believing the humans to be a primitive species with limited technological advancement. As their ships entered Earth's orbit, Jorax allowed himself a small, cruel smile. Scout reports confirmed the planet's status, Jorax said, his voice calm but laced with arrogance. Primitive combustion engines, outdated radio transmissions, and no signs of significant space travel. A right world, ready for the taking. The bridge of the flagship hummed with activity as his officers relayed commands to the fleet. The Zellara were confident, their superior technology making this invasion feel more like a formality than a true challenge. The humans were small, insignificant, like ants compared to the grandeur of the Zellara Empire. "Commander," said Vorik, the second in command, his voice thick with amusement. "The humans haven't even detected our presence yet. Their primitive sensors are laughable." Jorax nodded, feeling a surge of pride in his species' superiority. The humans, with their fragile planet and slow technological development, had no idea what was coming. They would crumble under the might of the Zellara, just as countless other worlds had before them. "Prepare the landing ships," Jorax ordered. "We begin the colonization immediately. These humans will either submit or be eradicated." As the orders were given, Jorax watched as the first wave of ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, heading towards the major cities. The Zellara were ready to claim another world, another victory, and another foothold in their vast empire. But what Jorax didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for years, decades even. While the Zellara saw Earth as a backward world, the humans had been quietly advancing in ways the aliens couldn't even fathom. On Earth, Commander Elena Travis stood in the underground command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. She gazed at the massive screens that displayed the alien fleet now hovering above the planet. There was no panic in her eyes, only a steely determination. "They're here," she said calmly, addressing the room filled with Earth's military and scientific elite, just as we expected. Colonel Leon Reyes, her tactical advisor, stood by her side. "Are we sure about this, Commander?" "Their technology is light years ahead of ours, or at least what they think our technology is." Elena nodded. "Exactly. Let them think that. It's the only advantage we have. Activate the planetary defense grid. Phase 1 begins now." The room sprang into action. Quietly and without any fanfare, Earth's hidden defense systems, long kept secret from the public, powered up. Massive energy shields surrounding the world's largest cities flickered to life, invisible to the naked eye but capable of withstanding the mightiest of attacks. Advanced weaponry, designed in underground laboratories and tested far from prying eyes, were readied. The time for diplomacy had long passed. Humanity was ready to fight back. For years, the world's greatest minds had worked in secret, knowing that one day the stars would bring more than just curiosity and wonder. They would bring invaders. And now that day had arrived. Elena leaned forward, her eyes narrowing as the alien ships drew closer. "They're going to learn something today," she muttered. "Humans are not as weak as they think." In orbit, Jorax watched with growing impatience as the first wave of his invasion force approached Earth's surface. He expected immediate surrender, or at worst, some feeble resistance. But then something unexpected happened. "Commander," Vorik's voice was filled with confusion. "Our weapons aren't hitting the surface. Something is blocking them." Jorax scowled. "What do you mean, blocking? We've detected no shields, no significant defense systems. This world should be defenseless." Vorik scrambled to analyze the data streaming in from the invasion fleet. "It's some kind of energy shield, but it's beyond anything we've ever encountered. Our scans didn't detect it." Jorax's confidence wavered for the first time. Impossible. These creatures couldn't have developed such technology. This must be a trick. But it was no trick. Earth's defenses, long hidden and underestimated, were active. The Zelra weapons, designed to destroy entire cities, were being repelled by a planetary defense grid that seemed to defy the aliens' understanding of physics. On the surface, Elena Travis allowed herself a small, triumphant smile as reports from the cities confirmed the success of the shields. Phase 1 is holding, she said. Now, let's show them what we can really do. Prepare for counterstrike. Colonel Reyes nodded, his fingers flying over the controls. Time to see how well they handle human ingenuity. From hidden bases around the globe, Earth's counterattack began. Stealth drones and A-powered missile systems launched into space, targeting the Zelra ships with pinpoint accuracy. It was humanity's first strike in this unexpected war, and it caught the aliens completely off guard. Jorax stared in disbelief as several of his ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light, their shields overloaded by concentrated human firepower. He had never seen anything like it. How had they missed this? How had the humans developed such advanced technology without their knowledge? Retreat, Jorax barked. Fall back. We need to reassess this situation. But it was too late. Humanity had made its move, and the battle for Earth had only just begun. Jorax paced the deck of his flagship, his mind reeling from the disastrous opening encounter. How had the humans, a species barely advanced enough to leave their own atmosphere, managed to resist their initial assault? Worse yet, they had not just defended themselves, but launched a counterattack that had crippled several of his ships. His second-in-command, Vorik, stood nervously by, awaiting orders. Commander, Vorik ventured, his voice shaky. Our scouts were wrong. These humans, they're far more advanced than we thought. Their technology. Jorax slammed a fist onto the console. I don't want excuses. How could we have missed this? Their entire planet appeared vulnerable, yet here we are, retreating like cowards. Vorik glanced at the holographic display of Earth. The planet, once viewed as a backwater, now shimmered with invisible shields, guarding its cities from the powerful weapons of the Zelra fleet. What are your orders, Commander? Jorax took a deep breath, forcing his anger to the back of his mind. This wasn't over. His fleet still outnumbered the humans, and the Zelra technology was superior in many ways. But now he knew better than to underestimate these creatures. They had been hiding their true capabilities, and now they would need to rethink their approach. Prepare the fleet for a second wave, Jorax ordered. But this time, we'll focus on disabling their power sources. They can't maintain those shields without energy. Target their infrastructure, power plants, energy grids, cripple their ability to fight back. Vorik nodded, relieved to have clear orders. Yes, Commander. On Earth, Commander Elena Travis stood at the center of the underground command center, watching as the Zelra fleet regrouped in orbit. They had pulled back, but Elena knew they weren't giving up. The aliens had come too far to abandon their conquest so easily. Colonel Leon Reyes leaned over her shoulder, pointing to the tactical map. They're going to try again, Elena. And this time, they'll change tactics. They know our shields are too strong to penetrate directly. Elena nodded. They'll go after our energy sources, but we've planned for this. Activate Phase 2. Reyes tapped a few keys on the console, initiating a series of commands that activated Earth's backup power grids. Over the years, humanity had developed decentralized energy networks with hidden reserves scattered across the planet. Even if the aliens destroyed a few key locations, the human defense systems would remain operational. Meanwhile, Sarah Kim, the leader of Earth's cyber warfare unit, was already working on her part of the plan. I've breached their fleet's communication systems, she said, her fingers flying over the keyboard. We can feed them false data, make them think they're hitting critical targets when they're really just wasting their resources. Elena smiled. Perfect. Let's keep them chasing shadows while we prepare our next move. The Zelra fleet moved in once again, this time targeting Earth's power infrastructure. Large energy cannons fired from orbit, aiming at what they believed were critical power plants and generators. On board his flagship, Jorax watched with satisfaction as explosions rippled across the planet's surface. "Commander," Vorik reported, "we're registering significant energy disruptions. Their shields should start failing any moment now." Zorax allowed himself a moment of triumph. This was more like it. Soon, Earth's defenses would collapse and the planet would be theirs. But then something went wrong. "Commander," Vorik's voice cracked with panic. "The energy levels, they're not dropping. In fact, they're increasing." Jorax's eyes widened in disbelief. "That's impossible. We've destroyed their power sources." Vorik shook his head, frantically analyzing the data. "No, we've been targeting decoys. The real power grid is still fully operational." Jorax's fury returned. How could they have known? How could they have anticipated? "They're smarter than we thought," Vorik whispered. "They're feeding us false data." Zorax clenched his fists. These humans were not just advanced, they were cunning. Every move the Zelra made seemed to be countered by a human strategy more sophisticated than anything he had ever seen from a lesser species. Meanwhile on Earth, Sarakim leaned back in her chair, a satisfied smirk on her face. "They've wasted almost all of their firepower on decoy targets. They have no idea where our real energy sources are." Elena nodded, but her expression remained serious. "That's good, but we can't get complacent. They'll adapt, just like we have. Prepare the orbital defense platforms for launch." Hidden within the outer edges of Earth's atmosphere were a series of orbital weapons platforms, advanced satellites equipped with long-range energy weapons. They had been developed in secret, part of humanity's contingency plan for this very situation. Now, it was time to reveal them. As the platforms powered up, Earth's forces launched a new wave of counterattacks. Stealth drones targeted key Zelra ships, disabling their engines and weapons systems with surgical precision. Meanwhile, the orbital platforms opened fire, sending powerful energy blasts toward the heart of the Zelra fleet. The alien ships were caught completely off guard. Jorax watched in horror as one after another, his ships were struck down. His fleet, which had been invincible just hours ago, was now being torn apart by the very species they had come to conquer. "Commander," Vorik shouted, "we're taking heavy losses. We need to retreat." Zorax's pride battled with the cold reality of the situation. His fleet was being decimated, and there was no way they could continue the assault without regrouping. "Pull back," he growled. "Fall back to a safe distance. We need to reassess." In the command center, Elena watched as the alien fleet retreated once again. She could see the fear in their tactics now. They had come expecting an easy victory, but they had found something far more dangerous. "We're not out of the woods yet," Colonel Reyes said, his voice cautious. "They'll be back, and they'll be smarter next time." Elena nodded. "I know, but so will we." As the alien fleet withdrew into the darkness of space, Jorax stood at the helm of his flagship, his mind racing. How had everything gone so wrong? He had underestimated these humans at every turn, and now his fleet was on the verge of total collapse. But Jorax wasn't finished yet. He had one final plan, one last desperate move that could still turn the tide in his favor. The humans had revealed their strength, but Jorax knew that no matter how strong they were, there was always a weakness. "We'll return," Jorax whispered to himself. "And when we do, we'll bring the full force of the Zelra Empire. This planet will be ours." The vastness of space was a cold and unforgiving void, but Jorax felt a fire burning in his chest as he stood before the tactical display. His pride had been wounded, and the humiliating defeat at the hands of the humans had shaken his fleet's morale. Now more than ever, the commander knew that brute force alone would not bring victory. The humans had proven themselves worthy adversaries, capable of cunning and strategy that had outwitted even the advanced technology of the Zelra. Jorax clenched his jaw. He would not fail again. "Commander," Vorik said, stepping forward cautiously. The fleet is regrouping, but we've sustained heavy losses. If we're to press the attack, we'll need reinforcements. Jorax nodded. I've already sent word to High Command. Reinforcements will arrive within the next planetary cycle, but we won't wait idly. We need a new approach. The holographic display shifted to show Earth rotating below them. The planet seemed so small, so insignificant, yet it had repelled the might of the Zelra fleet. Jorax narrowed his eyes, scanning the surface for weaknesses. He knew the humans were too strong to take on directly. They had shown their cards, a remarkable planetary defense system, and a counter-strike capability far beyond their apparent technological level. We'll use their strength against them, Jorax murmured, a plan beginning to form in his mind. If they want to play a game of strategy, then so be it. But this time, we'll dictate the rules. Back on Earth, Commander Elena Travis stood in front of her tactical display, eyes sharp and focused. The alien fleet had retreated, but she knew it wasn't the end. Far from it. The Zelra would be back, and they would come with a vengeance. Colonel Leon Reyes stood beside her, his arms crossed. They'll bring reinforcements next time, he said quietly. And they'll come smarter, not harder. Elena nodded. I know. That's why we need to outthink them at every turn. If we try to match them blow for blow, we'll lose. But if we make them play by our rules... Reyes raised an eyebrow. You've got something in mind. Elena smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. We need to give them what they want, but not in the way they expect. In a dimly lit room below the command center, Sarah Kim sat with her team of elite hackers, each one hunched over their consoles. The soft hum of electronics filled the air as lines of code scrolled across the screens. Sarah had been working non-stop since the aliens first appeared, using Earth's most advanced cyber warfare tools to disrupt the enemy's systems. Got something, Sarah? One of her team members asked. Sarah grinned. More than something. I found a backdoor into their fleet's command network. We can feed them any data we want now. We're about to give them a front-row seat to the greatest fake-out they've ever seen. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, sending packets of false data into the Zelra systems. On the other end, Jorax and his fleet would see what Sarah wanted them to see, Earth's defenses appearing to falter, power grids seemingly vulnerable, and weak points that, in reality, didn't exist. The Zelra fleet floated in orbit, readying for their next move. On the bridge of the flagship, Vorik monitored the streams of data coming in from their scans. He frowned. Commander Zorax, Vorik said, turning to his superior. We're detecting fluctuations in their energy shield matrix. Several key areas appeared to be vulnerable, specifically near their southern hemisphere power grid. Zorax studied the display, his mind whirring with possibilities. This was exactly what he had been waiting for, a crack in the human defenses. If they could disable even one of their power grids, the entire shield network would collapse, leaving Earth open to direct assault. Perfect, Jorax muttered. Prepare the fleet for a precision strike. We'll hit them where they're weakest. On Earth, Elena watched the alien fleet begin to reposition itself. The holographic display showed clusters of Zelra ships moving toward the southern hemisphere, just as she had anticipated. They had taken the bait. Are they buying it? Reyes asked, his voice tense. Elena nodded. Hook, line, and sinker. They think they found a weak spot in our defenses. By the time they realize what's really happening, it'll be too late. Reyes smiled. And what exactly are we feeding them? Elena gestured to the map. A completely fabricated energy grid. They're going to focus all their firepower on it, thinking they're knocking down our shields, but in reality, they'll be hitting nothing but air. Reyes chuckled, shaking his head in admiration. You're playing them like a fiddle, Commander. As the Zelra fleet launched their precision strike, Jorax felt a surge of confidence. This time, there would be no mistakes. This time, they would break through the human defenses and claim Earth as their own. The first wave of energy blasts rained down on the planet, striking the locations Vorik had identified as weak points. But something was wrong. "Commander." Vorik's voice trembled with alarm. "Our sensors are. They're showing no impact. It's as if." "As if what?" Vorik. Jorax snapped, his patience fraying. "As if there's nothing there," Vorik blurted out. "We've been firing at decoys." Jorax's eyes widened in disbelief. He turned to the tactical display, watching as the energy readings from Earth remained steady. The power grid was untouched. No shield collapse, no damage. "It's a trap," Jorax growled, the realization sinking in. "The humans, they've been playing us all along." Back in the command center, Elena watched the display with satisfaction. The alien fleet's attack had been completely wasted on false targets, just as she had planned. But now came the most critical part of the operation, the counterattack. "Prepare to engage the orbital platforms," Elena ordered. "Let's show them what happens when you underestimate humans." Reyes grinned. "Right away, Commander." In orbit, the Zelra fleet suddenly found itself under fire. Earth's orbital defense platforms, long dormant, now rolled to life. Energy beams sliced through the void, targeting the alien ships with pinpoint precision. The Zelra, already disoriented by the failed strike, were caught off guard by the sudden barrage. Storax watched in horror as his ships were ripped apart one by one. His forces, already weakened by the previous engagement, couldn't withstand the coordinated onslaught from Earth's defenses. "Pull back." Jorax barked, his voice filled with fury and desperation. "Fall back. We need to regroup." As the alien fleet once again retreated into the depths of space, Elena allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Humanity had outwitted the invaders again, using strategy and cunning to turn the tide of the battle. But she knew this wasn't the end. "They'll be back," Elena said quietly, her eyes still fixed on the display. "And next time, they'll be even more dangerous." Reyes nodded in agreement. "But so will we." Zorax stood in the dimly lit war room aboard his flagship, staring at the massive holographic map of Earth. His fleet had been reduced to a fraction of its former strength, and each failed assault had chipped away at his pride. The humans had outsmarted him at every turn, turning their planet into an impenetrable fortress. But he wasn't done yet. "Commander, we can't sustain another direct assault," Vorik said quietly, his face pale with concern. "The reinforcements will take time to arrive, and our fleet has been crippled. We need a new strategy." Jorax's jaw tightened. He knew Vorik was right. A full frontal attack was no longer an option, not with the humans demonstrating their incredible ability to adapt and outthink their enemies. But Jorax had no intention of retreating. His empire demanded results, and his superiors would not tolerate failure. There was only one path left, one last desperate gamble. "Prepare the infiltration team," Jorax ordered, his voice cold and decisive. "We will disable their defenses from the inside." Vorik looked up, startled. "Commander, you can't be serious. Infiltrating their planet, that's suicide. The humans have already proven themselves capable of thwarting even our most advanced technology. Sending a team down there, they won't expect it," Jorax interrupted. "They believe they've won, that we've been pushed back. While they focus on their defenses in space, we'll strike at the heart of their operations on the ground." Vorik hesitated, but he saw the determination in Jorax's eyes. There would be no changing the commander's mind. "Very well, I'll assemble the team." Jorax nodded, his gaze never leaving the map of Earth. This would be their last chance. The humans had outwitted him for the final time. On Earth, Commander Elena Travis was doing everything in her power to ensure that humanity's victory held. The alien fleet had retreated once again, but she knew it wasn't over. The Zelra would regroup, and when they returned, they would be more dangerous than ever. Earth's defenses were holding, but there was still an uneasy tension in the air. Colonel Leon Reyes stood next to her, reviewing the latest reports from their global defense network. "The orbital platforms are still operational, and we've managed to reinforce the city's shields. but we've picked up some strange activity in the last few hours. Small blips on the radar, almost like cloaked vessels. Elena frowned. Cloaked. Do we have confirmation? Reyes shook his head. Not yet. It's too faint to be sure, but given the way the Zelera have been operating, it wouldn't surprise me if they're planning something sneaky. Elena's mind raced. She knew the aliens had a knack for cunning strategies, and after their last defeat, she doubted they would attempt another direct attack. Double the security around all critical infrastructure, she ordered. If they're trying to infiltrate, we need to be ready. On the outskirts of Earth's largest defense hub, hidden deep within a mountain range, the Zelera infiltration team touched down silently. The group consisted of elite operatives trained in stealth and sabotage. Led by Captain Royal, one of the most ruthless commanders in the Zelera Empire, they moved like shadows through the forested terrain, their cloaking devices rendering them nearly invisible to human senses. Objective is the central power grid, Royal whispered to his team, his voice barely audible. We disable that, and their shield network falls apart. Once the shields are down, the fleet will strike. His team nodded in unison, their expressions hidden behind their advanced helmets. The humans wouldn't know what hit them. As they approached the power grid, Royal's team began planting explosives at key points, designed to disrupt the flow of energy that powered Earth's global defense systems. It was a meticulous process, but one they had perfected over countless operations across the galaxy. But this time, things were different. Inside the control center of the power grid, Captain Marcus Hale stood with his team of Earth's special forces. Hale was a seasoned soldier, a veteran of countless skirmishes, and he had learned not to underestimate the enemy. Since the aliens' retreat, Hale had been overseeing the defense of Earth's critical infrastructure, expecting the Zelera to try something bold. And now, his instincts were paying off. "We've got movement," one of his soldiers said, his voice tense. "Thermal readings. Could be cloaked units." Hale's eyes narrowed. "Looks like they're here. Alert the base. We're going to give them a proper welcome." Outside, Royal's team was nearing the final stages of their mission. The explosives were set, and all they needed was a clear signal from the fleet. But before Royal could issue the command, something unexpected happened. A burst of light flared across the hillside, followed by the deafening roar of gunfire. Earth's special forces, hidden in the trees, opened fire on the Zelera team. The humans had seen through their cloaking devices, and now Royal's team was under heavy attack. "Ambush," Royal shouted, diving behind a rock for cover. "Return fire." The Zelera operatives unleashed their weapons, but the humans had the upper hand. With superior knowledge of the terrain and advanced exosuits that enhanced their combat capabilities, Hale's forces quickly overwhelmed the aliens. Captain Hale, leading the charge, fired his weapon with precision, taking down one of the Zelera operatives in a single shot. "You picked the wrong planet to invade," he muttered under his breath as he moved through the battlefield. Within minutes, Royal's team had been decimated. The few surviving operatives attempted to retreat, but Hale's team cut them down before they could escape. The alien saboteurs had been neutralized, and the power grid remained intact. Hale stood over the body of Royal, his rifle still smoking. He tapped his communicator. "Commander Travis, the infiltration team has been neutralized." They didn't get far. Back in the command center, Elena let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Good work, Captain. Secure the area and make sure nothing was compromised." She turned to Reyes, who was watching the tactical display with a look of disbelief. "They're getting desperate," he said quietly. "Sending in an infiltration team like that, they must be running out of options." Elena nodded. "Desperate or not, they're still dangerous. We need to stay one step ahead." On board the Zelera flagship, Jorax slammed his fist against the console in frustration. His infiltration team had failed, just as his fleet had failed. The humans were more resourceful than he could have ever imagined, and now he had few cards left to play. Vorik approached cautiously. Commander, what are your orders? Jorax's face darkened. We can't wait for reinforcements. We'll make one final push. But this time, we won't just target their planet. We'll target their will. Vorik's eyes widened. You mean? Yes, Jorax said coldly. If we can't break their defenses, we'll break their Zorax stood at the helm of his crippled fleet, his eyes fixed on Earth, now shrouded in the brilliant blue glow of its defense shields. The tactical failures stung, but Jorax had made a decision. If he couldn't break humanity's defenses, he would break their will to fight. His final gamble would require not just brute force, but a psychological assault, a strike at the very heart of what made humans so dangerous, their unity and their hope. Prepare the doomsday weapon, Jorax commanded, his voice devoid of emotion. Target their capital. Vorik's eyes widened in shock. Commander, the doomsday weapon. That could obliterate a large portion of the planet. Jorax's face remained cold, his jaw clenched with determination. Exactly. If we can't take Earth, we'll make sure they have nothing left to fight for. The doomsday weapon was the Zelara's most powerful and devastating piece of technology, designed to annihilate entire cities in a single strike. It was a weapon of last resort, meant to crush any opposition so thoroughly that no species would dare rise again. Jorax was prepared to use it. Desperation had left him no other choice. On Earth, Commander Elena Travis was monitoring the enemy fleet as it hovered ominously just outside Earth's atmosphere. Something had changed in the aliens' movements, something far more dangerous than any previous assault. The Zelara had gone quiet after the failed infiltration attempt, and that silence unnerved her. Colonel Leon Reyes stood beside her, his brow furrowed in concern. They're up to something. They haven't made a move since we repelled the last wave. What do you think they're planning? Elena shook her head, eyes scanning the tactical data. I don't know, but I don't like it. They're not retreating, but they're not attacking either. It feels like they're waiting for something. At that moment, Sarakim's voice crackled through the comms from the cyber warfare unit. Commander, you need to see this. We've intercepted a transmission from the alien flagship. They're powering up some kind of massive energy source. It's unlike anything we've seen before. Elena's heart sank. She knew instantly what this meant. What kind of weapon are we dealing with, Sarah? There's no comparison in our databanks, Sarah replied. But the energy levels, they're off the charts. This thing could wipe out entire cities. Elena closed her eyes for a brief moment, steeling herself. They're preparing to strike at our capital. Ray's eyes widened in alarm. If they hit the capital, millions will die. The psychological blow alone could cripple our entire defense effort. Elena nodded grimly. We can't let that happen. We have to stop them before they fire that weapon. On board the Zelara flagship, Jorax watched as the doomsday weapon began to hum with deadly energy. The massive cannon, mounted at the core of his largest remaining battleship, pulsed with power. In moments, it would be ready to fire, unleashing devastation on a scale never before seen by humanity. They won't expect this, Jorax muttered to himself. They think they've won, but they haven't faced the full wrath of the Zelara. Vorik stepped forward, his face pale. Commander, if we fire this weapon, we'll be condemning millions of civilians. There will be no coming back from this. Jorax turned to his second-in-command, his eyes hard and unyielding. War isn't about mercy, Vorik. It's about victory. The humans are too strong. If we let them recover, they'll become a threat to the entire galaxy. We must crush them now, whatever the cost. Vorik bowed his head, unable to argue. He had seen what humans were capable of. They were unlike any species the Zelara had encountered before, driven, adaptable, and fiercely united in the face of danger. If left unchecked, they could rise to challenge even the mightiest empires. Prepare to fire, Jorax ordered. Let this be the final lesson we teach them. In the Earth Command Center, Elena's team worked frantically to devise a countermeasure. The stakes had never been higher. If the alien weapon fired, it could decimate not just a city, but the morale of an entire planet. Earth might never recover from such a blow. Sarah Kim's voice came through the comms again. "Commander, I think I can disrupt their weapon systems, but I need more time. If we can feed them corrupted data through their targeting matrix, we might be able to cause a misfire." Elena's hands gripped the edge of the control panel. "Do it, Sarah. We're out of options. How long do you need?" "About 5 minutes, maybe less," Sarah replied, her voice filled with tension. "But you'll need to keep them distracted." Elena turned to Reyes. "Colonel, launch everything we've got. Drones, fighters, orbital platforms. Hit their fleet with everything we can throw at them. We need to keep them off balance until Sarah can finish her job." Reyes nodded, issuing the orders swiftly. Earth's remaining defense forces surged into action. From hidden bases and launch facilities across the planet, hundreds of drones and fighter jets shot into the sky, streaking toward the alien fleet. The orbital platforms, already in position, opened fire, sending massive energy beams across the void toward the Zelra ships. Storex's fleet was caught off guard by the sudden human offensive. Energy beams and missiles slammed into the Zelra battleships, causing shields to flicker and fail. The humans were throwing everything they had into one final desperate assault. "Commander, we're under heavy fire," Vorik shouted. "Shields are failing on the outer perimeter." Jorax scowled. "Ignore them. Focus on the weapon. We're moments away from firing." But the relentless barrage from Earth's defenses continued to hammer the Zelra fleet. Fighter jets weaved through the alien formations, launching missile after missile at vulnerable targets. Several Zelra ships exploded in fiery bursts, their hulls ripped apart by the concentrated human firepower. Inside the flagship, the Doomsday weapon powered up, its massive cannon glowing with a blinding white light. Jorex's eyes gleamed with anticipation. Just a few more moments, and Earth's capital would be reduced to ash. But then, something went wrong. "Commander." Vorik's voice was filled with panic. "The weapon, it's malfunctioning." Zorax whirled around to face the control panel. The energy readings from the Doomsday weapon were fluctuating wildly, the power surging out of control. "What's happening?" Zorax demanded. "They've hacked into our systems," Vorik shouted. "They've corrupted the targeting data." Before Zorax could react, the weapon's power levels spiked dangerously. The cannon, now overloaded with energy, crackled with unstable force. Sparks flew from the control consoles as alarms blared across the bridge. "Shut it down," Zorax screamed, but it was too late. With a deafening roar, the Doomsday weapon exploded in a massive burst of energy, ripping through the flagship and sending shockwaves through the entire Zelra fleet. The blast vaporized several nearby ships and sent others spinning out of control. Zorax was thrown to the ground as the flagship's systems failed, the lights flickering and the hull groaning under the strain of the explosion. In an instant, the once mighty Zelra fleet had been reduced to scattered debris. On Earth, Elena watched as the alien fleet disintegrated on the tactical display. The explosion of the Doomsday weapon had sent the Zelra forces into chaos, their remaining ships fleeing in disarray. Earth had won. The invaders had been defeated. Cheers erupted in the command center, but Elena remained calm, her eyes still fixed on the screen. She knew this was more than just a military victory. It was a testament to humanity's resilience, their ability to survive and adapt in the face of overwhelming odds. Reyes approached her, a grin on his face. "Looks like we did it, Commander." Elena allowed herself a small smile. "For now. But this isn't over. The galaxy knows about us now. We've made it clear that we're not an easy target." Reyes nodded, his expression turning serious. "You're right. We've won this battle, but there will be others." Elena looked out at the stars, her mind already thinking of the future. "Let them come. We'll be ready." The debris of the once mighty Zelra fleet floated silently above Earth, a testament to humanity's resilience. On the surface, there were celebrations, but beneath the euphoria lay a collective realization. The galaxy now knew of Earth's strength, and there would be consequences. In the underground command center, Commander Elena Travis stood before her team, watching the last remnants of the Zelra ships disappear from the tactical map. There was a solemn silence that hung in the air, a mixture of relief and trepidation. They had won, but the cost had been immense, and the future was uncertain. Colonel Leon Reyes walked up beside her. "We did it," he said, his voice carrying the weight of hard-won victory. Elena nodded but didn't smile. "We did, but this is only the beginning, Leon. The galaxy knows about us now, and the Zelra won't be the last to come knocking." Reyes looked out at the exhausted but triumphant command staff, the reality of their situation settling over him. "You're right. This wasn't just about defending Earth. It was our debut on the galactic stage." Elena glanced over at Sarah Kim, who had played a pivotal role in disabling the Zelra doomsday weapon. "Sarah, do we have any indication of how widespread the damage was to the Zelra fleet?" Sarah, still seated at her console, typed a few commands before shaking her head. "They've gone dark, Commander. After the explosion, their remaining ships scattered. Some retreated to the far reaches of the system, others fled beyond our tracking range. But they won't be a threat anytime soon. We hit them hard." Reyes crossed his arms. "Good, but we can't assume they won't regroup. They might send word to other alien races about what happened here." Elena nodded. "That's what worries me. We've revealed ourselves as a capable force, but that also paints a target on our backs. We need to be prepared for whatever comes next." On the far side of the solar system, a few remaining Zelra ships limped through the dark void of space. Jorax sat in his command chair, wounded and broken, staring at the remnants of his once proud fleet. His face was a mask of rage and humiliation. "How could this have happened?" Jorax growled, his voice low and filled with venom. "How did we, the Zelra, fall to these primitives?" Vorik, bruised and barely standing, approached cautiously. "Commander, we underestimated them. Their technological progress was far beyond what we anticipated, and their will to fight." He hesitated, fearing Jorax's wrath. "Their unity is their strength. They fight as one, and that makes them formidable." Zorax's mandibles clicked in frustration. "Unity, it is their weakness, too. We'll learn from this defeat. When we return, we'll exploit their trust in one another. But for now, we must survive." Vorik dared to speak. "Shall we report back to High Command, Commander?" Jorax glared at his second-in-command. "No, not yet. We must rebuild, gather strength and assess. High Command will want an explanation, and I won't return to them until we are in a position to strike again. Next time, humanity will not be so lucky." With that, the remaining Zelra ships activated their cloaking devices and disappeared into the blackness of space, determined to fight another day. Weeks after the final battle, Earth had begun to rebuild. The cities that had been struck by the initial Zelra assault were recovering, and humanity's spirit had been reignited. For the first time in history, the nations of Earth were united under a common cause: survival. A newly formed coalition, the Earth Union, had emerged from the ashes of war. With leaders from every continent working together, humanity was preparing for its next phase: exploration and defense. The days of isolation were over. Earth was now a player in the galaxy, and they had no intention of being caught off guard again. In the heart of Earth's new capital, New Unity City, Commander Elena Travis and Colonel Leon Reyes stood on the balcony overlooking the massive assembly of leaders, soldiers, and civilians. Elena had been chosen as the head of Earth's newly formed Defense Council, a role she had earned through her leadership during the war. Reyes leaned against the railing, watching as ships from all over the world gathered at the new spaceport. "It's hard to believe we're here. One world, one people. I didn't think I'd ever see the day." Elena smiled softly. "It took an invasion to get us to this point, but maybe that's what we needed. The Zelera thought they could conquer us, but all they did was unite us. Now we're stronger than ever. Race chuckled. And what about you, Commander? What's next for Elena Travis? Elena turned to face him, her expression thoughtful. We're not just defenders anymore, Leon. We've got to start thinking about the future. We need to explore the stars, understand what's out there, and we need to be ready to defend not just Earth, but humanity, wherever it may go. She gestured to the sky, where a fleet of new ships was preparing for launch. That's the future. We won't just wait for the next invasion. We'll be out there, exploring, learning, and building alliances. Reyes nodded, and if the Zelera come back? Elena's eyes hardened. They'll find that humanity has grown even stronger. We won't be caught off guard again. Next time, we'll be ready. In the months that followed, humanity began to take its first steps beyond the solar system. New technologies were developed, and Earth's scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to push the boundaries of what was possible. Humanity had learned from the war, and now they were preparing for whatever came next. The Titus Initiative, named after the first alien city humans had uncovered during the war, was launched, a program designed to establish Earth's presence in the galaxy and build alliances with other species. The first exploratory ships, led by Commander Elena Travis herself, set off toward distant star systems, seeking out new worlds and potential allies. As the fleet left Earth's orbit, the people of Earth watched in awe. Humanity had survived its greatest test, and now they were stepping into a new chapter of their history, one filled with uncertainty, but also with hope. Elena stood on the bridge of the lead ship, staring out at the stars ahead. Behind her was a united Earth, stronger than ever. Ahead of her was the unknown, a galaxy waiting to be explored. But no matter what challenges lay ahead, she knew one thing for certain: humanity was ready.